Leo, Brent Bozell has been sworn in as U.S. ambassador-designate to South Africa. The U.S. Embassy said this on Friday. Bozell will formally assume his duties following the presentation of his credentials to the government of South Africa. For more reaction, we're joined by Professor John Stremlau, who's an international relations expert at Wits University. Prof, good to have you on the program. Firstly, what would you say should be the top strategic priorities for Bozell, who will pursue, or rather once he gets his credentials in Pretoria, what do you think he would be setting his eyes on at this point?
Well, what he'll be setting his eyes on is not what the South Africans consider to be important questions on the U.S.-South African relationship. He will be sort of campaigning for the break of ties to the non-aligned movement and to major powers like China and Russia, and yet this BRICS naval operation this week will be a fine welcome for him, because they are just Iran, China, Russia, UAE in naval operations, and that's what he has told the Congress. And it was a split vote along party lines, and he barely got through. But he told them that he would tackle that first and foremost.
Right. So as we continue to look into his profile, a lot's been said about developments, especially in Latin America this week, and also threats to Greenland as well. But given that South Africa is one of the US's largest African trading partners, a lot can be said about activity here on the African continent as well. How do you think then the US would plan to balance economic cooperation, especially with geopolitical competition, particularly vis-a-vis in China?
Well, you know, the executive order that Trump issued back in February, early February, the third executive order, was directed at South Africa, and he said that all aid would be cut off, and that Afrikaners would be welcome as refugees, and that tells you what Trump has on his mind. Now, there are 600 corporations, American corporations, that are working in South Africa, and I think are doing fairly well, and look forward to futures that are brighter than the Trump administration. It's been a tough year for U.S.-South African relations, but I hasten to note that this is not America, but Donald Trump and the MAGA crowd, and he's currently polling at around 36% or less. And I don't think it's going to make a big difference in the long-term relationship. But South Africa has been, this is the 114th anniversary of the ANC. Lamola, the foreign minister, reminded Rubio, the Secretary of State, that they didn't take Mandela off the terrorist list until 2008. So, you know, it's not a very good record of support for apartheid and concern. But I still feel that American, U.S., and South Africa should find ways to work together for common purposes of multilateralism, and that's what was originally the intent of the United Nations, and this is not Trump's agenda.
This is not Trump's agenda, but also the news of Bozell's appointment has been met with mixed reaction as well. From your experience, Prof, how should America then address concerns raised here, but also abroad, that his appointment might deepen diplomatic tensions rather than mend them?
Well, I can't see that they will mend them, and I don't think that that's his intent. He doesn't have any background in foreign affairs, and he was a conservative. He founded the Media Center years ago, and that was to attack liberal, so-called liberal establishment like Newzroom Afrika. So you can look forward to some complaints about Newzroom Afrika's coverage of international events, but I would say press on and remind everyone that a free media is absolutely crucial to democracy.
Yeah, you're quite right. He's been tasked with communicating U.S. objections to South Africa's foreign policy decisions. But what do you make of the approach to building constructive dialogue with Pretoria this time?
I don't think that there's much chance that, they are hell-bent for condemning South Africa for its heroic role in the World Court on Palestine. And, I think that there is no illusions on the part of the government. And in fact, Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber, in dismissing the Kenyans who were working at the U.S. Embassy, was a reminder that the priorities of the Trump administration are to welcome Afrikaner refugees who allegedly are being genocided here. And the fact that Leon Schreiber is white is a reminder that Trump is just over his head.
Trump is over his head, but many critics have also framed some U.S. policy positions, Prof, including refugee priorities, as racially divisive. What do you make of this? How is the U.S. even responding to those criticisms?
No, I think that they are divisive, but they are divisive domestically, and I'm holding my breath for the congressional elections later this year in November and for the 2028 presidential election. And I just don't think that Trump can alter the Constitution despite his invasion of the controversial invasion of Venezuela, and his meeting with congressional leaders has not gone well at all, and especially because the Democrats feel that there may be splits in the ranks of the MAGA crowd, and that got him elected in 2024. So we'll see.
Many are arguing that South Africa's grief really stems from its case at the ICJ as well and its intervention in the Gaza region. But how should the U.S. then view South Africa's case? Or how would Bozell, for instance, view South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice, especially regarding Gaza? And how do you think the UN plans to handle such disagreements, especially on matters of international law?
Well, the international law is normative only, and the major countries of the world have all signed up for membership in the UN, but we have two Security Council veto-wielding powers, Russia and the United States, that have invaded a sovereign country unilaterally without any blessing by the United Nations, and are thumbing their noses at the international community. But meanwhile, South Africa distinguished itself by hosting the G20 summit in last part of last year, and it's being forced to stay away from the summit in the G20 in Washington. And I think that that's petty and demeaning, but I think that South Africa is handling it extremely well, and Lamola and Ramaphosa have shown that they are the adults in the room in bilateral relations with the Trump administration, for heaven's sakes.
Well, some are arguing that for South Africa, having these tensions with the U.S. might cause even more problems for South Africa, including it having an impact on our economy as well. Prof, what role do you see, especially for U.S. business and investment, in really supporting South Africa's economic recovery and job creation effort?
Well, I'm holding my breath. I said that the 600 countries were companies are involved in American companies are involved in South Africa, and it's a very deep market in Africa, and it's growing, and I think that the companies will take advantage of it. But at the same time, when Trump cuts foreign assistance, the European Union steps up to the plate and sends down the president of the council and other officials and pledges 124 billion rand for supplementing the climate change and health related matters that the U.S. is pulling out of. I would not underestimate the huge friendships that South Africa has in the world, and the isolation that the Trump administration, which is not America, but the Trump administration is feeling, although he does not feel anything, but that they should feel, and I think that the establishment Republicans may well split.
Yeah. In his Senate testimony, Bozell described the current bilateral relationship with South Africa as a challenging moment. Do you think there are concrete steps that America can then take to, especially as Bozell starts his tenure, to initially stabilize this relationship with Pretoria?
No, I don't think so, frankly. And the expulsion of the South African ambassador from the U.S. was done precipitously and without concern for the bilateral relationship. I think that the boycott of the G20 by the United States was a stupid move, and it's just one of these things that has to, with the democracies that should be allies, they're often estrangements, and now Trump is dumping on Europe and doing Putin's work for him. So I can't make sense out of this moment in international relations, but I hope it will change.
It then begs the question, Prof, as to how will he even balance advocating U.S. policy goals while respecting South Africa's sovereignty, but also its non-alignment tradition in foreign relations? What's your view? They didn't
certainly acknowledge the sovereignty of Venezuela, but I hasten to note that the leader there was a lot different than Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine, and that was a Russian deal. And I think that South Africa has to stand up for sovereign equality, but also make distinctions about autocracies and their conspiracies to help each other, and build bridges to the democracies of the world, which are numerous. And I think that most people, most citizens of these countries, the 193 countries that comprise the United Nations, basically want freedom and dignity, and that's the growth industry. It's not autocracy.
Yeah, you spoke about Bozell's career as a communicator as well, but Prof, speaking about more on his career, are there any experiences or lessons or observations that you've made about his career that you believe will best prepare him for this complex diplomatic assignment, if you will?
No, I don't see anything that's promising on his career. And my colleague Brooks Spector has read his 4 books, and I haven't. And so I'm I'm reluctant to comment on his integrity or his focus, except that I have followed a little bit about the media center, that he criticizes the liberal press in the U.S., which is the only, democracy dies in darkness, and so, as the Washington Post says, and I think it's true. The twilight is on the Americans right now, but they have lived through deeper crises, and I hope will raise their heads again and with pride as liberal Democrats.
Thank you so much, Professor John Stremlau, sharing his insights today. As we've heard, this moment does represent both a challenge and an opportunity in U.S.-South Africa relations, from economic ties to global strategic competition, but also to shared values and contentious policy differences. For our viewers this evening, whether you agree or disagree with the direction of the policy, one thing is clear, that the next chapter will require careful negotiation, mutual respect, but also a frank dialogue as well. We'll continue to follow these developments quite closely.